Hello, and welcome back to the Thecrimereel. For this week's true crime narration, we shall be looking at the story of Joseph and Ibi Roncaioli. Ibi was born in Hungary in around 1937, but later moved to Ontario, Canada. In Canada, she worked at a beauty shop and met a man by the name of Stelio Supancic. Stelio was a former professional football player who had also moved to Canada. This is football as in soccer. He was originally from Italy. The couple soon married, and on 7th of April 1958, Ibi gave birth to their son, who was also given the name Stelio. Before baby Stelio had turned 2 years old, Ibi and Stelio Sr.'s marriage had completely broken down. Ibi left, leaving Stelio Jr. in the care of his father. It is believed that Ibi may have married again after divorcing Stelio and subsequently gave birth to her second son. The relationship did not last long, and shortly afterwards she met a man by the name of Joseph Roncaioli. They met in a hospital emergency ward in the early 1960s, where Joseph, who was in his early 30s at the time, was an intern. Ibi had been brought in by the police prior to being taken to jail for an unknown crime. Joseph was immediately struck by her beauty, and once she was released from jail, Joseph made contact with her. They soon became romantically involved and were besotted with each other. However, their relationship was built upon a foundation of secrets and lies. Ibi never told Joseph about her previous marriage to Stelio, nor that she'd had a son with him. Apparently, she feared disapproval from the deeply religious Roncaioli family. There are also questions over whether Joseph was aware of her second son. Some reports state that he had no knowledge of the boy's existence, whilst others state that the young boy became part of their family. Ibi and Joseph later got married and had a son together, who they named Joseph Jr. Joseph Sr. went on to own a successful gynecology practice in Ontario, Canada. He earned a lot of money from this practice, and the couple appeared to have an idyllic life. They lived in an upscale mansion in Centre Street in Ontario, enjoying such luxuries as an indoor swimming pool, sauna, and a gated entrance. Many who knew Joseph and Ibi said they seemed like a happy couple who enjoyed spending time in each other's company. In 1991, around 30 years into their lives together, their seemingly perfect life seemed to get even better. They won 5 million Canadian dollars on the lottery. However, as has so often been shown throughout history, money cannot buy happiness, and appearances can be deceptive. Despite the perfect life which they portrayed, behind closed doors the couple had become increasingly distant. They barely spoke, they slept in separate bedrooms, and lived very independent lives in their huge home. Ibi started to drink heavily and before long became dependent on alcohol. Her son once said that she would be particularly mean when she'd had a drink. Ibi also started gambling and spending excessively. The squandering of their fortune caused further tension within their marriage, although Joseph was supposedly unaware of how extreme Ibi's spending had become. Ibi's daughter-in-law, Melanie Roncaioli, was so concerned about her mother-in-law's drinking that she would not allow Ibi to babysit for her children. Melanie also suspected that Ibi was using illegal drugs. It was also rumoured that Joseph had multiple affairs around this time. On 20th of July 2003, 66-year-old Ibi was found dead in their home. It initially looked as though she had died from natural causes, but after an autopsy was completed, her cause of death was revealed as being far more sinister. It was found that Ibi had died from toxic levels of drugs and alcohol in her system. She was found to have several needle marks on her body, including some on her arms, thigh, calf, and foot. A lengthy police investigation followed. When the couple's finances were investigated, it was found that Ibi had illegally signed bank documents which transferred all of the lottery winnings into her name alone. She had then proceeded to spend, gamble, and give away all of this lottery win along with a substantial amount of the couple's life savings. She had given 2 million of the 5 million Canadian dollars win to her son Stelio, who Joseph didn't even know existed. Ibi and Stelio had reconnected at some point in the 1970s, although their relationship had remained extremely strained and distant since then. Stelio had gone on to become a successful ice hockey player who represented Canada in the 1980 Winter Olympics in Lake Placid. Ibi had also given 800,000 Canadian dollars to both their son Joseph and to her second son. The police also found that Joseph and Ibi's safety deposit box did not contain anything of any value, just a note saying that they had been defrauded of $250,000 and evidence that she had forged bank documents to enable her to access all of their assets. Despite their large lottery win and Joseph's substantial income throughout their marriage, their estate was only valued at 300,000 Canadian dollars at the time of Ibi's death. If Joseph was aware of all of this, police had uncovered enough evidence of a motive for Joseph to have been responsible for Ibi's death. Further troubling information came to light. As his wife lay dying, Joseph did not pick up the phone to call the emergency services, instead electing to sort some business with both his bookkeeper and real estate agent. It was eventually the bookkeeper who called for an ambulance whilst Joseph continued to ignore his wife. During a police interview in January 2004, Joseph described his wife as a compulsive liar. He told police that after his wife's death, he had discovered that Ibi had lied to him about her age throughout their marriage, and she was actually 8 years younger than he believed. He had also only recently discovered that Ibi had been married twice before and about her son Stelio. Joseph claimed to have had no idea of any of Ibi's deceptions or lies until after her death. During the long and often rambling interview, Joseph admitted to injecting Ibi in her arm with anaesthetic to assist with taking a blood sample from her. No explanation was given to the needle marks in her thigh, calf and foot. Later that month, Joseph was charged with manslaughter after police accused him of injecting his wife with a deadly cocktail of drugs and then failing to alert emergency services. Joseph, now around 70 years of age, was released on bail but became a shadow of his former self. In January 2005, he attempted to take his own life. The trial didn't begin until January 2008 in Newmarket, Toronto. Joseph's defence team presented the argument that, due to Ibi's fear of doctors, Joseph had been treating her deteriorating health at home. Joseph admitted to injecting her arm with 2 different anaesthetics in order to numb the area so that he could take a blood sample. The defence team argued that Ibi herself injected additional drugs and consumed alcohol, which then produced the fatal levels found during the autopsy. Joseph maintained that his intentions had been honourable but they'd had disastrous consequences. On 16th of February 2008, after 3 days of jury deliberations, Joseph was found guilty of his wife's manslaughter. A sentencing trial was set for April the 25th, 2008, where Joseph was sentenced to 7 years in prison. Immediately after the sentencing had been completed, Joseph's lawyer filed a motion to have him released on bail pending an appeal of both his conviction and sentence. At 5 p.m. on the day that he had been sentenced to 7 years in prison, Joseph walked away on bail, having still not completed any prison time for his crime. At that point there was no knowing of how long it would take for the appeal to be heard. Joseph was by now suffering from a series of health problems, including Hodgkin's disease and a depression disorder. It took another 3 years before the case eventually went to appeal in 2011, 8 years after Ibi's death. The appeal court ruled that the original conviction and sentence would stand, and Joseph was finally incarcerated for his crime. He would have been approaching 80 years of age at that time. It is unknown whether or not Joseph is still alive today and whether he completed his sentence and was ultimately released. Thanks very much for listening to the story of Joseph and Ibi Roncaioli. As always, if you could make any comments down below, I would appreciate it. I also have a special announcement. We really want the channel to grow. With the help and support we've had so far, it's been amazing. We're going to release 7 videos in 7 days. Now at the moment, we've got none recorded, so it's going to be a lot of work, but we're going to try this. I will do another announcement about it just prior, so that you're aware and you know roughly when I'll be posting, and if you can attend each day, that'll be great. And if not, if you want to just catch up later, that's fine as well. Anything you can do towards helping getting the channel discovered as well, I'd be grateful for. So watch this space, there will be some changes coming up. Thank you for watching Thecrimereel. Stay safe. Goodbye. Psst. Okay, so today's question. If you won the lottery, after you've given me a few bob, how would you spend it? Goodbye.